What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today's video is about Michael Chandler, one of the most popular fighters in the UFC lightweight division. Michael Chandler has been in headlines lately as he has agreed to take on Paddy Pimblett in 1 month in April. I think it's April 12th. I can't remember exactly. But anyways, we cannot wait for this fight. We got to give credit to Michael Chandler. One thing I want to say is that he said on the Ariel Helwani show a couple days ago, and this is the interview that I'm going to show in 1 second. He said that he was offered the fight, I believe, 2 weeks ago from the UFC, which is very interesting because as we noted on the channel months ago, Paddy Pimblett made a cryptic video where he said, hey guys, see you at the top, hinting, a lot of people speculated that he was going to be fighting Michael Chandler, and that was a hint that that fight was being discussed. So that was months ago, and I could be wrong, and that could have been totally innocuous and had nothing to do with this fight, but it seems like Paddy had much more advanced notice about potentially taking on Michael Chandler than Michael Chandler did about Paddy, if this whole thing is true. So I just want to point that out, that if that is true, and if Paddy Pimblett had way greater notice, we got to give credit to Michael Chandler for stepping up and taking this fight on not short notice, but relatively on a short timeline relative to Paddy. And why the UFC did that, I don't know. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out. Now, what is this video about? This video is about the real Michael Chandler. And I wanted to make this video because Michael Chandler is an interesting guy, and I'm a fan, and I will always watch his fights because he is one of the most exciting fighters out there. Say what you will about his fighting style, and maybe I know he's been criticized for not taking the most intellectual approach to fighting, but regardless, he is fun. And I know a lot of people said his 5th round against Charles Oliveira was kind of silly with standing up and slamming Charles on his back. Justin said this, for example, that it was more or less a pointless act that didn't really have much merit to it in terms of actually winning the fight. But for us fans, it was exciting. He did his best. He was messed up. I think he had torn his ACL already or MCL, and still to push through and put on that show. I loved it, and I thought it was a great fight. But we're gonna talk about that Charles Oliveira fight in a second. But what this video is about is when you listen to Michael Chandler in interviews, when he talks to reporters, talks to fans, he just seems like this model guy who puts his family first. He loves his wife. He has 2 sons. He's a family guy. And he gets you excited and he gets you inspired. And then there's this split where you hear certain other fighters talk about him, or you see the way he carries himself in fights. And it's a little bizarre because he talks in interviews as though he is always a champion of doing the right thing, always wanting to be on the right side of anything, of character, of behavior, of treating, how he interacts with other people. But then it's like another side of him comes out in the fights that doesn't seem so ethical per se, that bends the rules, that maybe even breaks the rules sometimes. And it leads people like me, fans of Chandler, to wonder, who is the real Michael Chandler? Is he the guy that he portrays himself to be in interviews? Is there really something else going on? I think I got an answer. So I'm going to throw out a couple clips here of Michael Chandler being interviewed. I'm going to show some other folks weighing in on this entire topic of who is Michael Chandler. And I think I have an idea on how to reconcile everything at the end, but I'll leave that to the end. So anyways, we're going to start off with this clip here where he's being interviewed about the Paddy Pimblett fight and just his entire training camp. And this is one of the reasons why people like Michael Chandler so much. I watched this interview. I was already excited about this fight, but I got even more excited listening to him talk about what he's been through and getting ready for Paddy Pimblett. So check this out. We're going to start with this quick clip from the Ariel Helwani show. Check out the Ariel Helwani show. Of course, everybody knows Ariel. But if you haven't checked out this interview, I would recommend watching it in full.
No matter what, when you're going into a training camp, you never know how that first couple sessions are going to be, man. How bad of shape am I in? How in pain am I here? The little cricks here. Where did I neglect my recovery? All I can say is I was built for this, man, because I stepped right onto the mats here in South Florida with my team, and it's like I never left. As a matter of fact, I think I got better since my last fight, as far as just the composure, the movement, cardio, and I'm glad I made the decision because I stand steadfast, and it's a common theme in my life. An imperfect plan implemented now is better than a perfect plan implemented sometime in the future, right? I could wait it out. I could wait till the perfect right time. maybe push it out to June. International Fight Week was obviously talked about, co-main event there. And that was kind of the rumblings and the talks. But then this opportunity came. It's like, man, what am I going to do? Sit at home and kind of put down a nice foundation like I always like to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time, man, and I'm excited to go out there and compete against Paddy.
And so
that if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. He's talking about the brutal injuries he had. I think he said after the Charles Oliveira fight, that was the worst he's ever felt after a fight in terms of the amount of damage he took, the injuries, how he was feeling, and he's jumping right back in the mix. So you got to respect him there. The other thing is I want to point out, when you listen to him in these clips, he sounds like he's on stage at a motivational conference of some sort with these little clips. Hey, the best plan is an imperfect timeline, or whatever he said exactly. But so this is what I'm talking about. It's that overwhelming positivity that he always seems to display. And I do think he is trying to be a really good role model and do what's right. And so this is, again, going in line with that same perspective of, man, he's a great role model. And I'm not saying that he's not. We're going to get to my final thoughts in a second, but I'm going to contrast this in a second with some things that other folks have said, like Dustin Poirier and even MMA Guru, et cetera, with respect to the last Charles Oliveira fight, which left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, even mine. It left a little bad taste as well. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But I want to show you one other clip from the Ariel Helwani show, which gets me even more excited. Watch this reaction when Ariel cues up this question. Check this out.
My assessment of him is, man, I think he's gotten a lot of undue criticism.
Sorry, that's the next clip where Ariel asks him a question, and that gets me really excited for this fight. But check this out. He's giving an honest assessment of his competition of Paddy. Again, very respectful the way he explains Paddy as a fighter.
Because when you're a big personality, you talk a certain way, you talk a little bit of trash. Obviously, he's had some run-ins with Ilia Topuria and some of these other guys where he's got these little animosities going on. The fans will either love that or they will hate that. They will either say, hey, you're propped up way too much, or they'll say, hey, I love Paddy Pimblett. You see it with a lot of guys. Bo Nickel's a great example right now. Guys, when they get into the UFC and they're fighting the toughest competition and they're fighting these big fights on these big stages and these big arenas, there's a certain learning curve that they need. I was very fortunate. I did all my learning curve back in Bellator, had to come into the UFC as a 32-year-old salty veteran and one of the top 5 guy right away. That was the path that I wanted. I told Hunter Campbell that when I sat in his office. I don't want to putz around the top 20, top 25. I don't need a tune-up fight. I want to get thrown into the shark-infested waters of the lightweight division. And that is what I have done since September of 2020.
How can you not respect that part? So that part, again, gets you excited. By the way, he also mentions in this interview, of all his fights, he's never missed weight. He's never pulled out. Another thing that people criticize him for, which I don't understand, is that he's a company guy. He always talks proudly and positively about the UFC. And people are like, oh, you're such a company guy. That's so lame. Look, if I was part of the UFC, I mean, that's the type of people that you want. Why wouldn't you talk positively about the UFC? I mean, unless it's warranted that you should say otherwise. But why not? You guys are business partners. You guys are trying to prop each other up. They've built a career path for him. They've made him money, given him a great platform, and he's respectful about that. So it's funny that he seems to get critiqued for that positivity and for propping up the UFC when I think, to me, that makes perfect sense. If you're just going to be even the tiniest bit business minded, you should. It's a partnership. It makes sense. Okay. Now this is the last part, which I think is pretty cool too, because Ariel asked him, hey, do you think you're a step up in competition? Just look at his eyes and his facial expression when he answers this. And I'm going to tell you why this gets me even more excited for this fight.
Would you agree that he's never fought anyone like you?
Yeah, I mean that's an understatement.
Oh, I just
with all due respect, and I don't like to overemphasize or overboast, but my goodness, I have done nothing but train myself in violent hand-to-hand combat since I was 14 years old, and I have fought the best of the best, from former champions to guys who are absolute psychopaths like Justin Gaethje. Yeah, not even close.
So good. Anyways, I love that because it's funny. People are picking. I actually am kind of picking Paddy to win too, not to diminish Michael Chandler, but there's a number of reasons why I'm picking Paddy Pimblett. Me and Justin talked about it in our last show. We'll probably talk about it again multiple times. I mean, Chandler's been through a lot of wars. You have the age difference. I think Paddy's got something to prove. I think Paddy is super underrated as a fighter. I think he's a very talented fighter, and people just don't give him his due credit. So I'm not saying I think Paddy will win because I think Chandler's not what he's cracked up to be. I think it's the opposite. I think Paddy is better than advertised. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think he's going to have a height and reach advantage. I mean, there's a number of reasons. So anyways, but like just seeing that expression and the confidence in Chandler when he's shocked almost that Ariel is asking that it just makes me so much more hyped for the fight because it makes the stakes that much higher, in my opinion. Seeing the confidence in Chandler and understanding that he truly believes that he's going to have a massive advantage, I think, against Paddy and really believes he's going to win will make it that much more incredible if Paddy does pull it off. And if Chandler pulls it off, props to him. Great job to him too. But this fight's cool. I've mentioned this before. When you see a fighter on the precipice of achieving what they've talked about for years, being great enough to contend for the belt, and now he's going to finally have the opportunity to prove it one way or the other. Man, that's exciting, especially for a figure like Paddy Pimblett who gets so many headlines and is polarizing as well. Okay, so that's the good that we've seen. That's the stuff that I think a lot of people will watch and be like, man, I love Chandler. He's such a positive person, great role model. And then you hear this side. So first, we're going to talk about this clip from Dustin Poirier. Him and Dustin, for whatever reason, have never got along. And the interesting thing is, if I heard, for example, Conor McGregor talk negatively about Chandler or some of these other figures that have a tendency to swing one way or the other, positive or negative, and just really go off on people, I wouldn't give it that much credibility in terms of how it would make me view somebody's character. If Conor went off on Chandler, I'd be like, that's Conor going on another rant. But then somebody like Dustin, who everybody universally loves, and he's just not a trash talker. He's just such a great guy down the middle, like so honest and authentic, the most honest and authentic fighter possibly in the history of the UFC, or at least one of them. And when he says these types of things, man, it just, I don't know. It makes you think twice about who is Chandler for real. Is there a dichotomy between the way he presents himself on camera and otherwise? So anyways, let me play this clip. And if you guys don't remember, they fought. Dustin Poirier won pretty decisively. But anyways, check this out. Chandler on this recent interview for Out of Pocket with RG3.
But everybody asks, well, why does this guy look? I don't hate anybody.
Right.
Why does this guy dislike this guy so much? People on the internet say, hey, I don't hate anybody. Why do I dislike him so much? It comes back to this. Long time ago, I was at a Bellator event.
Okay.
He was fighting on the card. He won. Comes in the back, and I've been seeing you walking around this week with so and so. I just wanted to come over and shake your hand. I respect you so much, man. Your career has been awesome. You've had so many great fights. You've come back from adversity. You and your wife, your foundation, everything. Man, it's really amazing. So nice to finally meet you and shake your hand.
Right.
Fast forward a year, 2 years, whatever, he makes it to the UFC. Now he's talking trash on me. So right then and there, the next time.
By the way, I don't remember what this trash talk he's mentioning was about. That I can't remember, and I couldn't find it, but I guess he was talking trash. I can't imagine Chandler really talking that negatively about Dustin, but whatever. So I guess he had a positive interaction. And because again, and in this case, to give Chandler some credit, maybe he was just saying some stuff to try and get a fight with Dustin. I don't know what it was, but anyways, so this aggravated Dustin, and it makes sense because Dustin is that guy that's just real all the way, all the time. He will never do anything just to hype up a fight. If it's real, he'll say it. If it's not, he won't.
Time I see him, I never see him again from the Bellator event. Great meeting, nice, had a small conversation, then he's talking trash, saying like he gets a mic and does the fashion show thing,
Right.
Says some outlandish stuff, and I'm like, nah, this guy. And then I saw him in Vegas. He was coming into an event at the T-Mobile Arena, and that's the first time I saw him since.
Right.
So I said, you little. I said, he walked in front of the security sergeant. I said, man, you a fake motherfucker. I said, I will beat your ass. And then they booked the fight. I wasn't trying, I was just telling him how I really felt. What he did at the Bellator show and then what he did on the mic.
Right.
I was still that same guy from the Bellator show. I was like, oh, and then he starts talking trash. I'm like, oh, this guy's really fake.
Right.
He's fake, bro. And he might be a good person at home, but my personal experience, he's fake, man.
Yeah, you don't like it when people
He's
say
fake.
one thing to your face and then say something else when they get.
So again, I don't know how much credibility to give this because, right, Chandler could have been hyping up the fight in his mind. Hey, there's a split. So what? I said some positive things to you. I'm trying to get a fight for both of us to get paid. I could see that. But here's the part where he goes into their actual fight. This is the part that makes me wonder. And again, I'm going to give you my thoughts as to how to resolve all of this and fit it all together in terms of this potential dichotomy in Michael Chandler. So check this out.
Get a mic.
That's like me and you right now. Just had dinner, having fun. I meet your wife, meet your crew, and hey, bro, nice to meet you. Big fan.
Right.
And then you see me on Ariel Helwani's MMA show and going, man, RG3, he's okay. I mean, not really that cool of a guy. Like,
it's a little different because this will be RG3. There'd be no reason to talk negatively about him. For Chandler, maybe in his mind, he was trying to get that fight going or trying to get some drama and beef happening. So it's a little different. But anyways.
Please don't do that.
No, but you would feel like, man, what the heck?
What
That's
the
how
heck?
I felt.
I got you.
But we do this knuckle shit. So I was even more mad. You know, I'm like, oh, let's fight then.
You proved your point.
Yeah.
You definitely proved your
And he's a
point.
cheater. And then, dude, bro.
This is the part that has got me thinking. The fact that he allegedly cheats in fights. But listen to what Dustin Poirier says.
I could go on for days. I get so amped up about this.
Let it
'Cause
out.
let me
Let
tell
it
you
out.
what. I get pissed off. He does all kind of stuff, man. Blows the blood in my eyes after I break his nose. That's cool. I've done that before. I'm not
Okay.
mad at him for that. It's war.
Right.
Whatever, you know, we're
By any
fighting.
means necessary.
Yeah.
You know, without cheating.
Without cheating. That's
Yes.
just, I've done that. A guy broke my nose in Vegas. I fought a guy named Joseph Duffy, the first guy to ever beat Conor McGregor. He made it to the UFC. I fought him. Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit was the main event. I fought him there. We might have got fight of the night or something. Or no, we got something. It was bloody fight. But anyway, I was bleeding all over him,
Right.
elbowing him, trying to make him blink so I could, elbow him. I was on top of him. And I admitted it after.
Yeah.
And then Chandler, I brought it up and he said he didn't do it. Like, just admit.
That's the weird part, right? And that's the part that is bizarre. And you're going to see this pattern play out again in the Oliveira fight. He does it, and then he can't admit to anybody that he's done it. And I think that also makes people wonder a little bit, like, well, you obviously did this. Why can't you just admit it? And I have an answer for why this is, I think, a potential answer.
Hit it, bro. You're so fake. Then he stuck his fingers in my mouth
Oh my God.
to lift my neck up for a rear naked choke, right? He's on my back. I'm trying to get up off the fence. He sticks his fingers inside my mouth, grips my mouth guard,
Pull it up.
pulls my head up to try to get his hand under my chin. Bro, I bite his fingers so hard. Let me tell you what.
Some Mike Tyson stuff.
Hey, you heard it here first. Let me tell you what. If I didn't have a mouth guard on my top teeth, if my
Right.
teeth could touch together,
You bit his fingers off?
oh, bro, he'll be walking and rocking like this forever. Hey, because I had a grip so good, I felt my bottom teeth go into his skin. I bet you he was cut. He knows what I'm talking about. You hope.
Okay. Anyway, so there's Dustin Poirier's take. Again, it's just that's the weird part, that he does those things and then he seems to not be able to admit them. And then now he goes and he fights Charles Oliveira, arguably one of the most beloved fighters in the UFC, who nobody has a negative thing to say about him. They had a crazy fight. Charles Oliveira was pretty dominant, I must say, for rounds 1 through 4. And then Chandler, he made a great showing in the 5th round and he almost got him out of there. But the problem with that 5th round is Chandler landed a lot of illegal strikes to the back of Charles Oliveira's head, and everybody saw it. People called him out. Again, this idea of the cheating came up. You can see in the search bar there. I was searching Michael Chandler cheated against Oliveira because I was trying to find this video. But yeah, people were basically saying, hey, man, you hit him in the back of the head multiple times, and it was caught. And then again, it's like, what does that say about somebody if you're going, if you're talking one way, but then you go and it's time to compete and you're breaking the rules and you're cheating, but you're saying, hey, man, we always got to do the right thing. We got to set an example. So, how do you reconcile that? Is that just a fake? Are those fake statements, or do you really believe it? What's going on? So anyways, let me play this clip. This is him being interviewed. This is from MMA Guru, of course, but it's MMA Guru is playing a clip of him being interviewed on Ariel's show. And then he responds to what Chandler's saying. But again, this is the bizarre thing that Chandler is once again in denial of allegedly cheating when everybody felt that he did. So check this out.
And ultimately, man, you're dropping a guy. You're down on points. You're dropping a guy. You're trying to hit him, and you're trying to get him out of there. I'm not 100% thinking about, that little red line between the back of the head the whole time. But
look, that part I understand. You can be like, hey, I looked back and I did hit him. I wasn't trying to. And he's moving his head and you're trying to catch him on the ear, and then he turns his head and you catch him on the back of all these things can happen. That would make a lot of sense if he would have said this. But then listen to what he says here.
It's
could have just said that bit. Don't need the start bit. Just say that and we're all good.
It's water under the bridge at this point. But more than anything, what you and I would call the back of the head is not what the unified rules of mixed martial arts call the back of the head. So
it needs to be defined, and it also needs to be understood by yourself, the media, the commentators, some of which have fought in an octagon for years and won championships, and the general fan base.
So let's just get this. So we have declared that they were obviously back of the headshots. And because of that, we are annoyed about this as a fan base and as a media selection and as the commentators as well. They're all individually annoyed at this because they watched back of the headshots happen. Chandler, instead of just saying, my bad, you guys, water under the bridge, I was in the heat of the moment, has now, we're all in the wrong. We don't understand. We don't truly understand the unified rules. We should be ashamed of ourselves for even thinking that. He's gaslighted the entire world that they're wrong about the back of the headshot issue. Interesting.
So again, that's the part that is difficult to reconcile. Why can't you just go out and admit it? It sets off alarm bells. But I think I have an answer. I don't think this makes Chandler a bad guy. What I think it is that, and I've heard this also from Justin, who has trained with Chandler. Chandler is a hardcore competitor, hardcore. And that's not just in fights. That's in the gym. That's during sparring. That's during grappling rounds, etc. And I think what happens is when he gets in there, I would imagine, again, I've never been in a fight. I've never been in a super hard sparring session either. So I don't know what happens, but I can imagine that maybe a switch gets flipped and he may not even be aware of what's happening. Now, if he looks back with retrospect and with an honest perspective, he would say, okay, I did do those things. But I think it's too much for him. That cognitive dissonance is coming in where he is always trying in his mind to put his best foot forward and be a good guy, be a good role model, be a good family guy. But then he has this break where when he's training and competing, he'll just do anything to win, whether it's crossing a line here or there, or cheating a little bit. And we've seen it now multiple times. And I think he just can't admit it. And that's okay. And again, part of the job of the referee is to step in there when these illegal things are happening. I mean, if the ref doesn't step in, most fighters aren't even probably going to be aware in the heat of the moment. They're not going to stop themselves and be like, wait a minute, that's a rule violation. So I don't think he should get too much hate on this front. I think just people were pretty upset, especially seeing Charles Oliveira get damaged that way. And I mean, those back of the headshots, we've seen them cause irreversible damage to fighters, to boxers, etc. So I think that's why it hit a tender spot with so many people. But anyways, that's it. That's how I think we can reconcile this dichotomy between how Chandler presents himself in interviews and what comes out in fights. I think it's that hyper competitive, that hyper level of competition that he just can't get away from. But that's why we love to watch his fights. So there you go. That's the breakdown. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys as excited to see Paddy the Baddie versus Michael Chandler as I am? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like this video, and make sure to click subscribe if you want to see more from our channel. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.